the video stars, make sure you follow our socials in the description and subscribe so you never miss an episode. Welcome back to the Offbeat Podcast, back again this week with me, your host Luke Bardsley. As always, if this is your first time listening to the podcast, please do drop us a follow and check out my past content. Today, joined by a very special guest, Dave Sweetmore's coming. How are we, mate?
Yeah, really good. Thanks for having me, yeah.
Mate, thank you for coming down. I mean, you are a local, aren't you? You're currently on Tameside Radio, aren't you?
Yeah, I'm Haywood based, just outside
Nice.
Haywood based, but yeah, work on Tameside Radio Monday to Friday. Yeah.
Is that the Drive Time show?
Drive Time show, yeah. I've been doing that for about 18 months now. I started there because I'd come from another station, Revolution, it was in Oldham, and I did an indie new music show on there. And when that went and that got sold to Greatest Hits Radio, that became Greatest Hits Radio. Quite a few of us from Revolution ended up on Tameside.
On Tameside, yeah.
Yeah, that had just been taken over by Quest Media, so they'd done a lot with it, made it a bit more professional and that. And yeah, so I was doing the indie show and then ended up doing a bit of cover work, and then they offered me the Drive Time show. So yeah, it's going all right.
I mean, it's peak time, isn't it, really?
Yeah,
you look
it's
at
good.
Breakfast and Drive Time, don't you? They're usually at your peak times on radio.
Yeah, it's good, and it's like, it's not something I ever really thought I'd be doing, to be honest with you, but they've been quite good, and they let me be quite creative with it. I could do what I want on it. They let me play a bit of new music on it as well, which is important to me. So yeah, it's good, and great place to work as well.
Yeah, I suppose. I mean, it's the best thing to do when you're in media is you want the freedom, don't you? Like, I mean,
Very much so. That's why, like, for the past 10 years, I've worked on radio, doing bits and pieces, but I've always stuck with indie and new music, and that's what I'm saying. I never really thought I'd go down the route of doing like a Drive Time mainstream show.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
It's a great place to work, really good people to work for, and like I say, they've let me be quite creative with the show as well, so it's a really busy, packed out show, and yeah, it's good. Enjoy it.
it's exactly what you want. And I wanted to talk to you more about sort of like the artist spotlight features you do, because you get a lot of not just new artists, but a lot of local artists on as well. Do you like to prioritise the local talent?
Very much. I mean, where that came from, so the local music spotlight thing, what we do is Quest Media own Tameside, Glossop and Oldham newspapers.
Nice, yeah.
And obviously Tameside Radio as well. And the idea of that was when I took on the Drive Time show, it was like, can I play a new band? Like on the, because obviously when you work on radio and you're doing a mainstream show like that, you don't pick the music, you get told what you're playing. And I was like, well, can I play a new band every night, around about just after 5 o'clock, peak time and all that. And they kind of let me just expand on that, and it came to the point where it was like, well, we'll play that band for a full week on every breakfast show, daytime show, drive time show.
Nice.
We'll get an article in the paper about article on the website and that. So it became local music spotlight. And we say local, it's Greater Manchester, Derbyshire, and obviously Tameside as well. But it's gone through the roof, because when we started it in January last year. And I thought after 3 or 4 months, I might have to start tapping a few bands up, see if they want to do it.
Of course.
Literally, I've not had to ask anyone. And I think I've got bands booked in now till June.
Nice.
And I've probably got a load of emails I've got to chase up yet. So it shows how much great music there is out there around this part of the world that are up for it. And I always say the good thing about it is it's brilliant that a lot of the stations have new music shows.
Yes.
But what we're doing with Local Music Spotlight is we're playing them on daytime shows where people are listening that perhaps don't really think about
It's not their
listening to
target
music.
audience. Yeah,
It's not, and you know what I mean? There'd be someone, you know what I mean? We could play like a new band, kind of like after Kylie Minogue and, before the Beatles, or so, you know what I mean? So it's like really throwing them in the mainstream thing. And every band we have on, go on, say how many new followers they get, and, people that perhaps wouldn't normally listen to that kind of music, they hear a song, they like it, and be like, who's this? So it's a really good thing we're doing that, and I've got to thank Quest Media for letting me do that and let me bring that to the station, you know what I mean?
Well, it's helped the station in the long run, hasn't it? It's all about the trust. I mean, you've come there with a plethora of experience, haven't you? So
yeah, that's what I mean. And like I say, to be honest, I'll be deadly honest. I think if they turn around and said, right, do the Drive Time show, but we'll tell you everything what you've got to do, and you're just going to be playing crap music all the way, I probably wouldn't have done it, because I always thought I'll do the indie stuff on the radio and that'll be it. But like I said, they have been let me be creative and do what I want with it. So you know what I mean? It's been, that's why I've enjoyed doing it so much.
It's all about exposure as well, because these new bands, I mean, there's so many bands out there, ain't there, nowadays? It's so hard to sort of get any traction, and being able to get that daytime slot as well, it's just like perfect.
That's what I mean. There's loads of new bands. There's loads of great new bands out there that struggle getting radio play, and if they get radio play, it might be one play at 10 o'clock on a Tuesday night. That, you know what I mean? Whereas we're playing them peak times, breakfast show, daytime show, drive time show. So yeah, there's loads of great new bands out there, and I just love how everyone's keeping at it. And the one good thing about the Northwest, I think the majority of new bands and that are quite supportive of each other.
Yes, they are.
And that's massive, that. You know what I mean? Because you go to a lot of towns and cities around the UK and it'd be like people will turn up for one band and then shoot off, whereas people do tend to be there's quite a lot of love for the unsigned scene, a lot of support and that, which is brilliant, you know what I mean?
They're working together as well. I mean, I've interviewed quite a few bands recently and they've all been talking about how you scratch my back, I scratch yours sort of aspect of it. And it also helps your job as well, because if you have a band come in and say, oh, I know these 4 lads.
That's what I mean, yeah. And
I
think in music, it is all about, it is all about contacts and meeting people. And I think I've always said the music world, whether you're talking about like some of the bigger bands I've worked with, whether that be Happy Mondays, Stone Roses, whatever, all that, it's a massive thing, the music world, but it's also a small thing as well. Everyone really does know each other, and I think you've got to get in with that and support each other, be there for each other, and you know what I mean?
Yeah, the bad eggs get sort of worn out quite quickly, don't
Very
they?
much so, yeah. Very much so, do you know what I mean? So it's good.
Yeah, so what are your sort of favourite bands at this moment in time sort of up and coming then? Have you got any that you really sort of struck out to you on this artist spotlight?
Do you know what, right? That's a proper on-the-spot question, that, because there's so many at the moment, and there's bands that, there's a lot that do sound like that same old indie routine, but there's a lot that really stand out. And I mean, off air just then before we talked about that, look at Alex Spencer.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Wow. If he doesn't end up massive, it'll be like...
He sold like 600 tickets, didn't he, on his last show? And that's like, what? And he's 16, 17?
Yeah, well, he did, like, his last headline show was like the Deaf Institute, you know what I mean? Sold out no time. I know he's got plans of doing another Manchester one at some point in a bigger venue again, and you know what I mean. I mean, he's had Liam Gallagher, Lady Gaga tweeting about him. He's just supporting Miles Kane, absolutely smashed it. You know what I mean?
Jesus.
So there's loads of bands out there, and I wouldn't really want to pick one or two because that'd be almost like favouritism. I don't want to do that. There's just so many out there.
Yeah.
And I mean, like the local music spotlight thing, we do have a Spotify playlist.
Oh,
so if
nice.
you just type in Tameside Radio local music spotlight on Spotify, there's a playlist there, and there's 2 or 3 tracks on that of every band and artist we've had on since we've been doing it. And I think we're up to about 58, 59 bands now. And like I say, we're not even struggling. It's continuously coming in, and it's brilliant, really good.
Especially when you look at it as well. Say in 5 years' time, you could have interviewed arena headliners their career, couldn't you, really?
Before Tameside Radio, like I say, a lot of us were on Revolution before that got sold to Great Estates. And I remember it's like, the Lathams, their first interview was with me on a similar feature on Revolution. Like I say, I knew the Lathams anyway, because I used to play at a nightclub in Wigan where they all used to go drinking, and they did their first gigs and that in there. But I've got a great picture of them. And it's only like 3 or 4 years ago, me with the Lathams, and they look so young. Do you know what I mean? But it's just great exposure for everyone, and by doing local music spotlight, it's also good for a bit of media training and stuff like that as well. It's good. It's good for all the bands.
Same for Stanley's as well, haven't you? You did.
Stanley's again, another great Wigan band. Been with them since day one, really. You know what I mean? They were on the same circuit as the Lathams, doing the Wigan and all that. And the one good thing about Stanley's is they work really hard.
Yeah.
They're really good at what they do, and it's like, they won't just play in every pub, bar, club, whatever. They'll, you know what I mean? I think the last gig they did do in Manchester, in their own right, was Academy 2, and I think they
I was there. Yeah, so
people,
I interviewed Ewan from Rosellas a couple of weeks before that, so Ewan invited me down to it, and that's how I got to know Shade, and then Shade have come on here now, so it all works.
But Rosella's another brilliant band, and again, they're going down the right channels and doing the right thing and all that, and I think that's dead important as well, to do it the right way rather than... work hard. I've always said that. You just got to work hard at it.
And they're all different as well. I love how different the music is. Because when I saw Stanley's for the first time, I was so shocked by... Do you know the presence of the lead singer? He's called Tom.
Yeah. Tom Concannon,
It was the presence of him. I was like, you just know when they've got it, don't you?
Bands like Stanley's, they've got all this amazing music, and as soon as you hear one of the songs, you know it's Stanley's.
Yes, you do.
When you listen to it, you can pick out their influences as well. And I enjoy doing that. You know what I mean? But like you say, you're dead right. What you said is all these great bands at the moment, and you can hear all the influences in them. But they've all got their own sound as well. Rosella's, you just mentioned, Alex Spencer, Stanley's. Brilliant, really good.
Yeah, they're all they're together, but slightly in different lanes, which is always good to see. I just wanted to talk a little bit about your festival, sort of foray as well, because you're doing a lot of DJing, aren't you, at sort of local festivals nowadays?
Well, DJing's where it all started, really. It started when I was 18 in Heywood, doing bars and clubs, and I mean, it was an amazing nightlife there back then. Like a lot of towns, had really good time. And I was always into the band scene, and I'd left school working with bands. And I just ended up working with bands again, and then ended up working with the Spirals and the Happy Mondays and all that. And then, the festivals have just... sort of gradually come along. I mean, I do a lot of tribute festivals now, and they're massive. Them, do you know what I mean? It's
Huge.
like this as we record this forthcoming Saturday. We've got the one at Bowlers. You know what I mean? There were 6,000 people there. And it's just a brilliant day. So I think last year I did about 30 odd festivals, and I think this year I've got 20 odd booked in already, and I know I'll get a few more booked in and that. But yeah,
they're all local as well. I mean, there's one happening at Ashton Cricket Club and
Fields of Gold. Yeah,
Fields of Gold.
That's September. So I do the Friday, and Clint does the Saturday.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's loads like that. There's loads of great ones, and they're really good days out because they all hold a few thousand people. Some like Fields of Gold's like an over 18s one, but then you get a Manchester Adored outside ones that are like family friendly, and there's loads of great bands on, amazing lineups. They pick all the best tribute bands, loads of stuff going on, and it's just a brilliant day out.
Yeah, cool. And it's about family aspect. I mean, you're gonna go and know every song of every artist.
That's what I mean. You're never going to see a lineup ever again with Oasis, Stone Roses, Kasabian, Arctic Monkeys. There's never going to be a festival like that. And like I say, a lot of the festivals. There is a few festivals popping up now that are using all the cheaper tribute bands and jumping on the bandwagon a bit, which is a bit of a shame. But a lot of the, like I say, Manchester Adored and all that, they're using the best tribute bands and, you know what I mean, the quality musicians that just want to make a living out playing music. And I know a lot of people do have a bit of a thing about tribute bands, but there is a lot of crap tribute bands that will play in pubs, stick wigs on and all that.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of brilliant tribute bands that are amazing musicians, and these festivals are brilliant for them. I love them, they're some of my favourite things we do. I am lucky. I do Kendall Calling, do Shine On, do a lot of them. But the tribute festivals, the atmosphere are brilliant. It's like 12 hours of, like you just said, all songs, brilliant day, brilliant atmosphere, no hassle, no idiots, you know what I mean? It's just a great day.
Yeah, what is your opinion on people who always sort of hate on tribute bands? Because I feel like they do have a place in music, because not everybody likes new music and like new songs. Some people just like to listen to what they grew up to. And my dad's the same. Like, if I get in my dad's van, ABBA are playing. Yeah. And it's either ABBA are playing or nothing's playing.
That's what I mean.
And he's just that kind of guy.
There's bands like, you're never going to see the Beatles. Yeah. You know what I mean? Are Oasis going to get back together? Who knows? But the thing is with tribute bands, it's a very grey area because there's a lot of bands that do jump on the bandwagon a bit with it, throw wigs on and play in pubs. But then there's a lot of the quality tribute bands like Kasabian, the Clone Roses, and, loads of bands like that are quality musicians. And I think I get why some people don't like them. It's like, create your own music. And I get that. And that's why, I support new music as much as anyone. But there's a lot of venues out there now. Music venues are really struggling.
Yeah, yeah.
And there's a lot of venues out there now that wouldn't be there if it wasn't for the tribute bands. Because, they'll put tribute bands on at weekend, get 400, 500, 600, 700 people in, 1,000 people. Even the academies do all tribute festivals now.
Yes, they do, yeah.
And by putting them gigs on with the tribute bands, making all that money, that then means during the week they can put the unsigned bands on, and if they don't make any money at that, it doesn't really matter because they're making a fortune at weekend. So I do get that not everyone likes tribute bands. I do get it, and I get why. But tribute bands are keeping...
There is a place in the industry.
Tribute bands are keeping a hell of a lot of venues open. There is no doubt about it. And it's quite frightening how many venues would be shut if it wasn't for tribute bands.
Yeah.
So even if you don't like them, I think you've got to... You can't deny that fact.
You've got to accept it, yeah. You need to accept that they are definitely in there.
Yeah.
I like how what Bowls are doing at the moment as well, because with the tribute festivals, they're doing like an 80s one on one weekend, a 90s one, and an indies one, and then... Like,
that's what I mean. Many different areas. Like Manchester Adored is really, really one on its own. Yeah. I mean, like we're there on Saturday at Bowlers. There were 6,000 people there. There's 4 arenas. There's the main arena. So I'm hosting and DJing at that, and then it's got loads of tribute bands on. Manny from the Stone Roses is coming doing a DJ set.
Oh, nice.
And then there's 3 smaller arenas. And when I say smaller, they all hold like,
I've been Bowlers before.
That's what I mean. The Acid House Arena, that holds like 2,000 people, I think. But that's got like, K-Class on, Graham Park, Todd Terry's there next week. That's from
so it's all like the high centre classical.
Oh, yeah. So then you've got another room that's like acoustic that's got all... I think that's like got Queen, Stereophonics, acoustic on, all sing-along type stuff.
Yes, yeah.
And then you've got the 80s Guilty Pleasures room that's got Simple Minds and Duran Duran and all that kind of stuff on. So it really is, it's quite a bizarre thing because like you will walk from one room to another. When I say room, it's one arena to another. And literally as you walk through the door, 1 minute you're in a big rave with Acid House going off.
Yeah.
Then you're in a big indie club with all this indie music. Then you're in like an 80s room playing Wham or whatever. And then you're in a sing-along thing to Queen or Stereophonics. It's quite a bizarre thing, but it is a brilliant day out. And it's one of them things, I work on a lot of festivals, but Manchester Adored is something that I think everyone needs to experience. You can't not have a good day. You know what I mean? 6,000 people, all ages, no hassle. It's a brilliant day.
Yeah, my mates have done it before,
Yeah.
and they've said about how good it is, because it's just an easy day where you
I
can
feel
just chill
really
out, enjoy
privileged
it.
and blessed to work on stuff like that.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Really, really, really proud as well, because they're brilliant days, and the production that goes into it as well, it's amazing.
Yeah, definitely. I wanted to go back to a little bit of your start of your career as well, because you did a lot of work with, was it Rochdale? Doing sort of like the announcement and sort of looking after the DJ.
I worked at Rochdale Football Club till, well, it's nearly 2 years since I left now, but I worked there as a stadium announcer, and I sort of fell into that really. But again, really lucky when I started there. They let me be quite creative with what I did.
Oh, nice.
At the time, it was sort of like 2000, 2001. And like the Britpop scene and Manchester scene had sort of gone.
Yes.
And the indie scene, sort of like your Arctic Monkeys, Libertines, hadn't quite broke through. So every football ground you went to, whether it be Premiership, Lower League, whatever, they were playing whatever on radio, now albums. And Rochdale let me be quite creative, and I was an indie DJ, so I was playing the Beatles, Rolling Stones, Stone Roses, Oasis, and all that. And we got loads of like media attention for it.
Nice.
And I was playing new bands as well. No other professional football ground did that.
Nice.
So I was really lucky. It was great for me, and it was great for Rochdale Football Club as well. Excuse me. And we did that, and that carried on for years and years. And I know that a lot of grounds now do play a lot of indie and stuff, but Rochdale at the time, we were sort of the originators of that. So leaving there 2 years ago was a massive decision, but I was just getting so busy with all the work, and there'd been a lot of changes.
Your weekends are done then, aren't they?
That's what I mean. There'd been a lot of changes at the club, and it had changed. It weren't really the same kind of place to work, and they were more, because I mean, 8, 9, 10 years ago, I was doing 6, 7 nights a week nightclubs, whereas now it's sort of, I don't do as much of that.
Yeah.
It's a lot more gigs and festivals, which, like you say, are Saturdays. But like I say, it was a big decision leaving there, but I had some great times there. And like I say, when I left there, we had like the New York Times getting in touch with us. And
nice.
That. And it was like saying, oh yeah, you've created British rock and roll football and all that. And it was like, whoa, what? So dead proud, again, a lot of good, proud memories from working there.
So you said you fell into stadium announcing. How did you fall into that industry?
I fell into pretty much everything, I think. So when I was about when I was about 19, I worked on hospital radio.
What, Tameside?
No, it was a hospital radio station.
Okay.
Because back then, hospital radio in like the late 90s was quite a big thing. Because
Okay.
you go in hospital now and you've got like the smart TVs. And
Yes,
that.
yeah.
Back then, it was hospital radio. That's all you had. You had like a wire coming out of the wall with 2 earphones, and you had hospital radio. So it was quite a big thing.
So it was either listening to that or you just sit in silence.
And a lot of the big DJs from over the years have started on hospital radios. And I started doing that, but I didn't really last long at it, because at the time I was 19, 20, whatever it were, and it were like, do I want to be in nightclubs every week? Living a dream like that, or sat in a studio? And I obviously went down the nightclub route. But while I was doing that hospital radio, they covered the Rochdale games, and I weren't mad on football. I'm not a massive football fan by any means. And
really, that shocked me, that, because
everyone thinks that.
Yeah, I just presumed that you got into it for a little foot.
I've always watched it, never been mad on it. It's always been music for me, always been music. And yeah, it was sort of like the lad who were commentating for Rochdale, for the hospital station.
Yes, yeah.
Said they need a new stadium announcer. And I was like, I'll have a go at that. You know what I mean? And then a little did I think that I'd be there 20 years later. But yeah, it was, so sort of fell into that really. But obviously while I'm there, you get a lot more into football. And like I say, I met some amazing people. It was brilliant. It was a really good time I had there. But again, dead lucky, you know what I mean?
Yeah, well, you say lucky, but it's like you were saying before, if you work hard, opportunities come, don't they? And that's essentially what you always want. Sort of, if you work hard, you never know what's right.
I think whatever you're doing, I think, like, for example, you know, if you're going to do an event, whether there's 100 people there or whether there's 10,000 people there, them 100 people are just as important as the 10,000 people.
Of course.
So I think whenever I'm doing a DJ set, working hard, I don't think about what the event is. It's just work hard and give people a good time. It's all about making memories, in it, and that's when you're a DJ, people in front of you are making memories. That's what it is. Yeah. So
do you know, like, when you are DJing at these sort of festivals? Because obviously you've got a plethora of acts to come sort of after you. Do you what songs do you play? Do you try and avoid the songs that, say for example, if you've got the Stone Roses on, Oasis on after you, do you not play any Stone Roses, Oasis?
No, definitely not.
Yeah.
I mean, I've worked with bands for a long time. I left school when I was like 15 and started as a roadie with bands.
Okay.
That was where my band thing started. So I've always worked with bands, and I've always had a lot of respect with bands, and sort of seem to get respect back off bands. So it's like when we're doing the festivals, it's like, I mean, it's quite funny really, because you look at Bowlers this Saturday, that's the next one coming up.
Yes.
All them indie bands, I won't play any of their music, you know what I mean? So it's like, there's a lot of bands there you can't play, but there's that much great music out there. Do you know what I mean? It's sort of, and I always say when you do a DJ set, it's a bit like a book, really. You know, you start it and get people interested, then you get to the middle where people are like engrossed, and then you finish it on a high where people remember it. And I've always looked at it a bit like that, really.
Bit like a story, so you've got to always sort of build up.
You've got to keep people involved all night, and you've got to get people in the mood for it. Then you've got to have them at the peak, having the best time of their life, and then when it gets to the end, it's like anthemic and like leave on a high. Yeah.
So do you have like a go-to set, or do you change it up every single festival you do?
Do you have playlists? Do you have set lists? No, don't get me wrong. Most of the time, probably do play a lot of the same stuff. Do play a lot of the same stuff, but no, I've never in.
You don't have a set order where it's always this.
Never in my life have I had a set list of what I'm going to play, ever. Never, because, like I said, roughly know what I'm going to play the same stuff a lot of the time, but you go off the crowd. 100% you go off the crowd.
Oh, nice. So you don't like because I just presumed you'd pre-prepare it, saying a week before you say, right, this is start,
a lot of DJs do, and you'll find a lot of dance DJs do that, because they're a lot more technical than I am. They've got to go into the beats and all that kind of stuff. So a lot of dance DJs will kind of like, you know, prepare in advance. They've got to work out what beats go with what and all that. Doing indie stuff, which is 99% of what I do, there's not a lot of mixing. I'm not a very technical DJ. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, no, I've never prepared a set in my life. I know roughly what I'm going to play, but literally work off the crowd. I'm not technical, but I'm good at reading a crowd. Do you know what I mean?
That's good. Yeah.
So I always say that. I don't think there's many DJs that are absolutely brilliant at everything. Technically, I'm not very good. I can work my way around it. I'm not amazing. But I'm good at reading a crowd. I'm good at motivating a crowd. Do you know what I mean? So that's where I'm at. You know what I mean?
I suppose that's probably why you get booked for festivals all the time. 'Cause that's what you need to do for festivals.
100% for festivals. Yeah, definitely, yeah.
Yeah, 100%. So what happens during like winter then? So say all the festivals are gone. What's your main source of work when you're into it? Are you into, because you've just stopped doing the nightclubs. Was that your main sort of like winter work, or
like 8, 9, 10 years ago? I was doing 6, 7 nightclubs a week. Mm-hmm. That was every week. That was all over the north, really. And then, like I say, it's naturally progressed that I'm doing a lot more gigs, doing a lot more bands, doing a few tours and stuff. Like I did the Little Man Tate tour, did Somebody in Spirals tour.
Nice.
It's weird because everyone thinks as a DJ you're going to be hammered over Christmas, but I don't do parties and functions, so I'm not. Christmas really is the quiet time for me.
That's nice.
I mean, I'm lucky that up till a couple of years ago I had football. I've got the radio now, doing Tameside Radio, and yeah, I do still do bits of gigs. I mean, the one residency I'd kept was Independence nightclub in Wigan, which sadly shut down in February. So when it comes to winter, I'm going to have to scratch my head a bit and think what I'm going to do. But generally, yeah, it's summer that's busy for me.
Yeah,
I mean,
especially with the festivals and sort of you're in there everywhere.
But that's where I'm at. That's what I enjoy doing. That's what I love. That's what that's where my career's took me over the last 8, 9 years.
Yeah. So does, say for example, if you're with your artist spotlight, for example, are you sort of putting bands in contact with different people? Are you sort of working as like?
Do you know what? Again, and this probably, I always get bands will say, "Oh, can you put us in?" I'll always put people in touch with each other. But I don't always like recommending people because there's always this thing of favouritism, isn't there?
Of course.
Do you know what I mean? And it's like...
Especially in the line of work you're in, you're playing everybody, so you need to make sure you are impartial.
That's what I mean. Like you just said before, about standout bands that have been on Local Music Spotlight.
Yeah.
I could probably reel off 9 or 10, but then what about the other 50 that they've had on? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, I always get bands saying, can you get us on this festival? Can you get us on that festival? Blah, blah, blah. I'll never try and do it myself. But I'll always put people in contact with them.
Yeah, simply just give them an email. There you go.
Yeah.
There's a contact. Sort of
and don't get me wrong, if a promoter said, "Oh, what do you think of such a body? What do you think of them?" I'll always tell them. Do you know what I mean? And to be honest, I probably don't have to tell them. Probably be able to tell off my face, really. But I feel really lucky because I don't really work with any. Like you said before, there's some amazing new bands out there. There's so much great new music out there at the moment. I think like probably 8, 9, 10 years ago when you looked at the new music scene, there was 2 or 3 bands that stood out.
Yes.
A load of bands that were alright, and then 2 or 3 bands that weren't any good. And I think over the last few years, I think there's a level that people have got up to now. Technology's got better, so people can produce music and record music a lot better than they ever could. And whereas it always used to be 2 or 3 standout bands, I do feel that there's a level now where if you're going to be in a new band and you want to get somewhere, there's a level that you know you need to be at, quality-wise, performance-wise, presence-wise. And I think that is more like relevant now than ever. So
look how many studios are in Manchester alone.
That's what I mean.
Just Manchester.
Yeah.
There's tens, if not hundreds of studios.
I mean, and it's stuff like this, what you're doing now with this podcast, it's amazing. This is brilliant. This is so good for new bands. And at one time, you would have had to come, or we would have had to go to the studio and do this.
Yes.
We're set up here now in your mate's shop. You know
all
what I mean?
self-funded. All it's done is I started off with a really bad camera. It was so bad. A dodgy recording platform I downloaded, which was probably not legal.
Yeah.
But I downloaded it onto a computer and I just plugged in a mic and just started talking.
That's what I mean. It's brilliant.
And look at it now, like it just grows over time.
That's what I mean. It's brilliant, and stuff like you doing this and people that do stuff like this is amazing, because the more people that follow you in this podcast, the more bands will pop up that they've never heard of. That they'll listen to them. And I always say that band who you go and watch, who are a support band, or that band who someone listens to on this podcast, might be the new favourite band.
Yes, 100%.
And that's why I think stuff like this is so brilliant and so important. Really do.
That's why I love it as well, because I love new bands. Like, if I go to a gig, I'm there for, if not the first support, 100% I'm there for the start of the second support.
I have this thing, mate, people don't turn up for support bands. And the Beatles, the Rolling Stones, Oasis, the Arctic Monkeys, they've all been support bands.
Everyone was small. Everyone has been small.
How many people in the 60s saw the Beatles, don't know they've seen them? How many people have seen Oasis, still don't know they've seen them? Mm-hmm. So I always think supporting support bands is massive, because all the biggest bands in the world were support bands once. Yeah. Do you know what I mean?
You can't just fall in love, like, you don't just sort of like, you have to evolve your music taste as well, don't you? Because you never know what you're going to listen to.
You do, absolutely, and you know, it's easy to get pigeonholed with, I know so a lot of people have probably been pigeonholed with that indie scene, which, don't get me wrong, I love it, but there's so many different arms for that indie. I love, like, when I get into a new band, whoever it is, whatever level they're at, I love seeing who their influences are. Nice. Because chances are you'll hear a new band that... Like, I remember when I was at school, and I tell this story a lot, when I was at school, I was well into 60s music. Nice. Now I left school in 94. And like during school, I was well into 60s. All the mates used to set the mick at me for it, because I was listening to beat. But it was uncool. No one liked it other than me. And then when Oasis came out, and the old Britpop thing, Oasis were very much, we love the Beatles, we love the Rolling Stones, we love Bowie, we love Slade. Yeah. And it became cool then. And I was always like, I told you it were good. You know what I mean? I was very much like that. But I think it's like Oasis did so much for wearing their influences on the sleeve. Do you know what I mean? And I love that, because that's who you listen back to. You discover music back and back and back. And whereas now it's cool to listen to 60s music, it's cool to listen to, you know what I mean? Any band that comes out reels off all their influences. Yes. The mum and dad's record collection. And that's brilliant, that, because in the early 90s that didn't happen. And like I said, it was Oasis that did that, and Cast and Ocean Colour Sea and all that,
I do love when just bands... When I had Spangled in recently, and Ben was saying, I never listened to an indie band until I was 16. Yeah. And now he's playing sold-out venues for like 400 or 500 people.
Are you familiar with Caden Nolan?
Yes, so Caden...
You want to get him on?
He's putting Shade, didn't he?
Yeah, that's right.
On the latest,
Caden had a band called Scuttlers, and again, Caden, a bit like Alex Spence, really. I've been with him from day one in his career, so I met Caden... There used to be a music venue in Middleton called Carson's. Nice. And I did once a month there, and I knew his older brother, Callum. And Caden was a massive hip-hop and R&B kid. Nice. And hated anything to do with guitars. Yeah. And his brother, Callum, took him to see Stone Roses at Eaton Park, and that day changed his life. And if you look at him now, he's one of the best new music artists around, and he's the most indie kid ever. Do you know what I mean? He's brilliant, and that's what you say. You have got to listen to other stuff and see what you like. You know what I mean? Have
to, definitely. Yeah. We'll have a quick break, and then I want to talk a bit more about your experiences with sort of like the Happy Mondays and Inspiral Carpets, because I bet you got some great stories to tell.
Yeah,
definitely. So we'll have a little break and we'll come up with part 2. Part 2, and we are back, and we were discussing a lot in the break of sort of like close ties, really. I didn't realise how many people we knew sort of similar.
That's what we said before. It's sort of like the music world in general is a massive thing, but once you're in it and you're lucky to be in it, which you are lucky, if you work in music, whatever level, you are lucky to be in it. It is a small world, sort of everyone knows each other.
Especially so, because a lot of sort of like, because it used to be when I was growing up, it was a case of like Radio X was like the big one, everyone listened to it, and there wasn't really anything else, really, as you narrowed it down, you have to find it. Whereas now you've got like XS Manchester, which is massive.
There's loads, and all sorts of, you know, most stations do something with new music now, which is brilliant, you know what I mean? And so they should, because every music is new at some point, you know what I mean? Everyone's favourite singers, no one had heard of at some point, you know what I mean? And That's why supporting new music, stuff like this, is brilliant.
It's what you want, and like Jim at the moment on he's just like the stuff that he's doing for new music is like, well, so many bands overcreate sort of like
very
him,
much so.
It's mental.
It's good.
It's a great industry to be in, as we were talking. And speaking of like people you met in the industry, you in the 90s, you met a lot of sort of big characters flying around there, didn't you?
Yeah, to be honest, it weren't really the 90s for me, because like during the 90s, I was still DJing where I'm from, Haywood, and it was more like as I got into like the 2000s, I started meeting the Inspirals and then one band to another. So really for me, it wasn't when them bands were at the peak and in the charts and on Top of the Pops and all that. I didn't really, because I always say that, a lot of my best friends now, I used to watch on Top of the Pops.
Nice.
You know what I mean? As my heroes, and now a lot of my best friends, and it's easy to forget that, God, I used to watch them on Top of the Pops, you know what I mean? So I'm probably saying the same thing a lot, but I feel really lucky for that. So it's sort of like everyone who I've met has been over the last 20 years rather than in the 90s kind of thing.
That's a mad sort of way to get your head around, really.
Well, it is, because when I was at school, as I mentioned before, I was always into 60s music, and I left school when I was 14, 15, and I started through my dad. My dad were a promoter for 60s bands.
Oh, nice.
And from being 14, 15, I was touring the UK and Ireland with 60s bands as the roadie. So it's sort of like, I met a lot of massive 60s stars and 70s stars then, and then fell into DJing by accident at 18. And then, it's sort of gone from one thing to another. So I feel really lucky at like all the genres and all that I'm into. I'm lucky. I do still speak to a lot of the lads in 60s bands. You know, I'm well into new music. I know a lot of younger new musicians. And yet, like I just said, all the people who I used to watch on Top of the Pops, whether that be Happy Mondays, Stone Roses, Inspiral Carpets, from my generation, if you like, I'm mates with them now, and it's like, it's pretty mental, really. But you know what I mean? It's not something I ever take for granted.
They do a lot of the same festivals, don't they? Like Clint Boone does practically the majority.
Clint, to be honest, if I was to look back at when I first started making a name for myself, however you want to put it, a lot of it comes down. I know a lot of people probably say the same thing about Clint, but when I met, he was massive for my career. Yeah. He really, really was. And through him, I like, same with this. Once you meet someone, you meet others, you meet and all that. But yeah, so a lot of them do the same circuit, and you know what I mean? I mean, there's not many, like every week I'll speak to the Inspirals or Happy Mondays or whatever, you know what I mean? And it's just, we do all bump into each other, and, you know, it's good. Yeah,
definitely. I mean, Clint's one of them where I've never heard a bad story about Clint.
Clint will help anyone.
Yeah, I've never heard a bad story about him.
I always, when I do podcasts like this, I always end up saying I've got a lot to thank Clint for. So over a million people. Yeah. When I first met Clint, he was sort of very much out of the limelight, because I met Clint probably early 2000s, and the Inspirals had gone, finished.
Yes.
Clint wasn't on the radio, and he wasn't really doing much. So whereas he'd been this big name in the Inspirals, and he's a big name again now, I probably met him in the period where he's
kind of the lull of his career, where he wasn't really.
I don't like, perhaps not. Well, I suppose it was the lull of his career, but it was sort of like where he'd gone out of the spotlight.
Yeah, it was literally that's his career trajectory, isn't it? Really.
After the Inspirals, he'd formed a band called the Clint Boone Experience, and that was when I met him. And like I said, the Inspirals had gone, the radio hadn't started, so it was sort of like at his quiet point. I probably good calling it that. So when I met him, then we really became the best of friends very quickly. Do you know what I mean? And obviously you meet him, you meet others, and you just carry on meeting people.
You work your way up. Yeah, definitely. Because there's always someone to introduce someone.
I always feel like really lucky, because I've never really gone I've never gone begging to do this, that, and the other, blah, blah, blah. I always feel that through people I've met, it's sort of come to me. And again, I feel lucky for that. You know what I mean? And it is through working and meeting people.
It's natural growth as well, because it shows that, because at the end of the day, like you can, that's why I like podcasts so much on radio, because you can't be someone you're not. Like, you can't have an hour interview with someone and then be acting for an hour. It's impossible. You can't do it.
It's true that, and I think more than ever now, with radio, whatever level of radio you're at, and with podcasts like this, you can be yourself, because I couldn't be someone I'm not. And, like, you know, when I was in my early 20s, I probably wouldn't have got a job on the radio, because I didn't sound like anyone else. I've not got the old school radio voice.
Yeah.
I couldn't
the smooth radio
that's
sort
what
of
I mean.
voice.
I couldn't try and be someone I'm not. Whereas now you can be, and I think it's a lot more on radio about being your own person rather than being. If you listen to radio in the 70s or 80s, everybody sounded the same. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Whereas now they don't, and a lot of that is because radio stations are letting you be yourself.
Same on TV as well.
Yeah,
everyone sounded the same on TV.
Yeah. I mean, during the 60s, 70s and 80s, really, if you look back at stuff, there weren't really accents on telly. Everyone had the same well-spoken, well-pronounced voice where you said all your pronunciation's correct and all that. Whereas now you yourself, and I don't watch a lot of telly, but like you say with telly, all the presenters themselves, they've all got their own regional accents and are proud of that. Do you know what I mean? But a lot of that would have happened anyway because of podcasts like this, because you're not going to come on here and try and start being well spoken and all.
Oh,
that.
I can't.
Just be yourself.
I'm a man card, and I know I am. Like,
that's what I mean.
I can't not be who I am.
That's what I mean. And again, that's why I feel lucky that I do get a full-time position on the radio and all that, because I'm not your typical sound like every other presenter. But a lot of that's come from how it's progressed anyway, and you can be yourself.
Yeah.
I couldn't be someone I'm not. I really couldn't.
Do you think that sort of like the form of online content creation has helped that? Because there's so much content out there. You can't just have these brilliant, well-spoken people.
Yeah.
People buy up people, don't they, really?
Of course they do, yeah. And it's more relatable being yourself. Do you know what I mean? You're more relatable to people. And it's definitely as, I mean, you could look at it with music and bands as well. There's the side gone that the days of one massive superstar have probably gone now.
Yes.
There's never going to be another Oasis. There's a lot more big bands or big presenters.
Yeah, so like arena bands, aren't they? You have like academy level, you have like arena level, you have festival headliner level, don't you?
Whereas like you look at Oasis, they were the last band that people had to go and buy records. You had to queue for tickets. There won't be another band that take over the world like that again. There'll be a lot of big bands at a bit lower level, and I think presenters are the same. And I think you look at, I've never spoken about this before, so I am thinking out loud, but if you think of like Ant and Dec, they do absolutely everything. Whereas I don't think there'll be anyone like them again. I think you'll find there's a lot more presenters who come from online or whatever that do well, but not to the point where for 20 years, whatever it is, they take over everything.
Yeah, they can't have that. I'm thinking now, off the top of my head, you're looking at, there's a lot of sort of like comedians that move into presenting now, don't they? And everyone's got different shows, like Ramesh Ranganathan, The Week Is Late, you've got like Joe Dommett, who's doing like The Masked Singer, for example. Yeah. Everyone's sort of, because there's so many sort of online and sort of content creators.
It is brilliant because there's a lot more stuff out there you can discover and find, and it's brilliant for that. I think the days of one huge person have gone. Do you know what I mean? But there's a lot more. You know what I mean?
I think it helps the industry more than anything.
Oh, of course it does.
You don't want to listen to this. It's like back 10, 15 years ago, you turn on ITV and Ant and Dec would be on from like 6 o'clock till 9. Yeah. And don't get me wrong, Ant and Dec are great. They're amazing.
Whereas now there's a lot more people doing
it's
that.
Staggered now.
Once they stop doing stuff, I don't think there'd be one person or one pairing like that take over
dominate,
all the television. Dominate, that's the word, yeah. Again, it'll be a lot more. But I think it's the same with everything that because of online. So, there's going to be downsides to it, but generally it's
You see
good.
it in sport as well. Yeah. Like in sport at the moment, there's not just one person who's just everywhere. You've got these different people popping up because it just makes sense to... At the end of the day, you can't have the same person saying the same opinion every single week.
And not everybody's going to like everybody. So if you discover someone like you know what I mean, there'll be people who love this podcast and love another podcast and all that, and you just discover who you like, don't you? And there'll be people that love my radio show, but there'll be people that hate it as well. Do you know what I mean? And I think because there's that much option and variety out there, you can choose and find what you like. Yeah,
cool. Do you feel like you've found like your next sort of 5-10 years in radio then? Because I'm not gonna speaking to you. I know you were saying you didn't like radio like sort of 10 years ago, but I can tell you love it now.
Yeah, it weren't that I didn't like it. I just thought it'd be something that wasn't for me.
You. Yeah.
Because I didn't think like I said, I'm really lucky where they let me go on and be who I am. Mm-hmm. 10 years ago, that probably wouldn't have happened. It would have been like, right, you could do the radio, but you'll have to put on this persona where you're talking about what you watched on telly last night and what you had for your tea. That's not me. I'm not bothered about that. You know what I mean? I want to talk about music. That's all I know. Don't know about anything else. So, I hope so, yeah. I mean, radio's the one thing is, because there is so much out there now, making a living and getting paid in radio and stuff is a lot harder. Yeah, because there's so much of it out there. A lot of stations, a lot of our presenters on Tameside are volunteers, only a few of us that, you know what I mean? So I hope so, yeah. And I think definitely the presenting stuff is going to go that way. Nightclubs are getting a thing of the past now. There's more and more nightclubs shutting down. So yeah, I mean, who knows? If I could still be making a living in music in 5-10 years, I'll be the happiest man in the world. Because I've never thought, oh yeah, you just see what happens, don't you? Yeah, people live in the pubs. I know we're saying like sort of like the nightclub scene's dying. I mean, I can't remember last time I went to a nightclub. But I go to the pub most weekends. That's it. I mean, I think a lot of things, like the nightclub industry, it's sort of like, I know it's a good few years ago now, but 24-hour drinking didn't help because in this country, people used to go to a bar or a club till 11, 12 o'clock. And go to a club till 2, 3, 4 o'clock. Whereas now all the bars are open till 2, 3 o'clock.
Yeah. Around here, but I mean, Gloucester have got two pubs that open till 2, 3 a.m.
That's what I mean. And then the pandemic, there's sort of 2 years there of 18-year-olds that stopped going out as much. It's expensive to go out. A lot of young people got healthy all of a sudden, started going walking on Sundays and that. Yeah. So I think nightclubs really, sadly, are... In fact, I don't think you just got to look out there, see how many nightclubs are shutting down.
Yeah, but very, very studenty, aren't they, nightclubs nowadays, whereas they never used to be.
Saying that at the same time, it's like, say, 10 years ago, I used to do Mondays in Manchester, Wednesdays Blackpool, Thursday Liverpool, Friday Huddersfield, Saturday alternate Manchester and Oldham, and every other Sunday Liverpool, as well as guest sets everywhere else. And every night was hammered. And I don't think even in student towns and unis, students don't go out 6, 7 nights a week like they used to. 10 years ago, they did. That's what they did. They went out drinking, partying, whereas now they don't. So I think the old culture's changed.
It's a lot of travelling for you, that.
I do. To be honest, I do a lot of travelling anyway, doing it. So I don't drink when I'm working. I always drive.
I mean, you have to, otherwise you'd
very, like when I first started DJing in my hometown, I'd have a drink and that. But now it's sort of like I've got to the point where even when I'm local, I'll just drive and I enjoy having a drink when I'm not working. You know what I mean?
Yes,
but it's sort of, I think, the old things changed. Like I say, 24-hour drinking changed it. The pandemic massively changed it. It's so expensive to go out now.
It is. It's a taxi zone. The taxi zone, because obviously I live in Gloucester. Yeah. If I'm going to Manchester, I've got to either get the train down, which is all right, but even the train's £9 now. Yeah. If not, I've got to get a £30 taxi and a £40 back.
And it's like you can get a crate of lager now for a price of 2 drinks if you're lucky in a pub, you know what I mean? It is sad, but I suppose how it is, isn't it?
Yeah, there's a lot of sort of quirky bars up in Manchester now, aren't there, where they all have different themes and stuff like that.
Yeah, which is great if it brings people in. It's brilliant. Yeah,
it's what you want, and every pub does food now as well, which have you noticed?
I think again, like we said before, tribute bands, like them or not, tribute bands are keeping a lot of venues open.
Yes,
food is what's keeping a lot of pubs open.
Yeah. 100%. I mean, I will go to a pub now if they've got good food on. Yeah. I usually pick pubs based on food because I know I'm going to have to eat. If I get there at 5 and there for 4 hours, I know I'm going to have to eat. So a lot of people, you have to pick them based on food, which is mental. If you said that 15 years ago, like, imagine
food if I'd said, on the way home.
If I'd have said that to my dad would be like, what?
Yeah.
Like, if he goes out drinking, he'd never, ever.
It is mad, really. But to go back to the original thing, 5, 10 years, I've no idea. Who knows?
Yeah, who knows? Definitely.
I hope I am, but, you know.
Would you move into sort of like TV and presenting sort of?
A little bit. It's dead weird because like I've done a lot of online. I do a lot of online presenting stuff. I did Thankyou TV and MMTV, and it's dead weird because I don't mind listening to myself back, but I don't like watching myself back. But I think there's probably a lot of people. But
interesting.
I would, if it came along, I would do. Yeah. But like I say, if you'd said to me 3 years ago you're going to be on the radio 5 days a week, it wasn't that I didn't want to do it. I just couldn't have imagined.
Not your right time. Yeah.
So who knows? Who knows?
Have you not become numb to it yet? As in, like, Joey was saying how you don't mind listening back, but watching back. Like, have you not become like numb to watching yourself presenting?
It's just I don't really. It's sort of like when we do MMTV on Thankyou TV. If there's an interview on I've wanted to watch back, or the only time I'll watch it back is I do think that I think you never stop learning. Mm-hmm. So it's like now and again I'll listen back to a radio show or something. I'll find things I've done do differently. You know what I mean? Because I think however long you've been doing it, I've been DJing nearly 30 years now, and I still learn stuff, still pick stuff up, whether that be off another DJ, off someone in the crowd. I always think you always learn stuff.
I'm the same, yeah. I'm 100% the same. So I've got no media training. Yeah. Never did media at school. Never done anything like that. Or like, for example, like having the 2-camera setup. Yeah. I literally just learned that off watching a podcast, and I was like, oh, that looks good.
That's what I mean. It's dead interesting that because like. I'd done bits of, like I say, when I was a kid, I did hospital radio. But when I started on Revolution, which was a professional station, that was like, I think I had to do 3 months training before they let me go on air.
Really?
And when I walked in, I was very much like thinking, God,
we'll go in and chat.
I'm all right. I've got a bit of a name for myself to let me have a show. And it didn't happen like that. And I'm so grateful for that training. And I think if you're going to go into radio professionally, you're going to have that training. But the good thing is with platforms like this, again, you just do it.
You hone your own skills, don't
Very
you?
much
Like,
so, yeah.
I've never listened back to like an episode that I did, like my first 20, 30 episode.
Yeah.
I've got no idea
Yeah.
like what I was like, but I can imagine how bad I was.
I'd hate to listen back to my first radio show.
Yeah.
I'd hate it because I'd cringe like mad. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, you'd listen to it and be like, why have you done... It's like now when I'm editing, because I have to edit it myself, and sometimes it's a burden because I'll be listening and I'll notice keywords that I say over and over again, and I'm like, why am I saying that?
I think that's a natural thing. I get picked up on I'll say certain words constantly, and I don't know I'm doing it, but you just do.
It's
and
natural,
that's the natural thing, innit? You know what I mean?
I think it's helped me with my work though as well, because obviously in sales, you become numb to your voice in that anyway, so you forget about certain words that you say.
I always like listen to my peers and that as well. I mean, like there's people at Tameside, a great example, who've been on the radio a lot longer than I have.
Definitely.
And even though they'll say like, God, you've been doing it 10 years as well or whatever, I still learn off them and, you know, take notes off them and pick up things off them. And I think, you know, every chance when I listen back to this today, you might have done or said something. I think,
yes,
that's brilliant. I'm going to do that. Yeah. And I just think if you listen and learn stuff like that, and do you know what I mean? And
I do it all the time. I'm a bit annoyed. I interviewed Tim Leesby, assistant manager of Bury, latest episode, and he said something I related with so much. Where he said, "I'm a burden because I'm a sponge. If I'm with someone, like my girlfriend hates it because I'll talk to random people.
Yeah.
So say if we're in the airport right now and there's a woman next to me, I'll just turn to her and say, "Hi, are you okay?" And I'll just speak to her, and you learn things based off that. And she hates it. She's like, "Why are you talking to randomers?" And I'm like,
It's good because I think you've got to learn. Like when I get interviewed for stuff like this podcast, I know that I'm going to have to do most of the talking and all that. But when you are interviewing someone, you need to learn to like listen as well. You know what I mean? And I think there's just a lot of things like that you pick up on, and you know,
there's little nuances, isn't it? To different ways that you need to do things.
Definitely. Of course there is, yeah.
I always like sort of like tips and tricks, and that's another thing I wanted to. Because obviously you've done now radio for 18 months. You've done so much presenting, so much sort of media work. What are, like, say, your 3 top tips for anyone looking to get into the world of media? What would you say is like your must-dos?
Be yourself. Learn off people. You never stop learning, and just meet as many people as you can. Do you know what I mean? Yeah.
I think that's perfect for this, and that's why like people and like bands that I'm meeting nowadays are all in the same boat where they're like, if you get offered a gig. Like, I remember I once got told by a band, I can't remember who it was, who said that they turned down a few gigs because they weren't ready for it. And that absolutely baffled me.
Well, you get yourself ready for it.
Yeah. Like, why would you, even if you do a shit job, you've done a job.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, why would you?
You've got to meet as many people as you can and just get to know them. And you know, it's all about who you know. And it really is. Do you know what I mean?
And you learn from your bad stuff as well. Like, I've done interviews where I've come out of it, I've spoken to my girlfriend, I was like, do you know what? I don't think I was very good. I didn't ask the right questions. I probably should have prompted a little bit more stories and stuff.
That probably means because you care about what you're doing. And you know for next time.
You learn, don't you? That's the method of there, definitely learning. I want to end on a few more sort of like clickbaity questions as well, and a few questions I do like to ask the guests. So I'm a big lover of Greggs, the high street chain. Don't know if you know of it.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Big lover of Greggs.
Yeah.
Say if I gave you a tenner right now, what are you going to Greggs and getting?
Do you know what's really weird? When we were driving here, because Caroline, girlfriend's with me, I actually said on the way, I fancy a Greggs sausage roll.
Lovely.
So it's mad that you've asked that.
Lovely. Yeah. I'm a big advocate for Greggs. Like, huge advocate.
I love pies and pasties, mate.
So do I.
I wish they were healthy.
We're so Northern, aren't we?
Do you know, like, you can have 5 fruit and veg a day. I wish it were 5 pies and pasties.
Agreed.
Yeah.
What's your go-to when you're in Greggs then? Do you just get a sausage roll? Do you get 2 things? Dessert?
Whatever I'm in the mood for, really. I don't really get desserts, I don't think. But yeah, whatever really.
See, I'm a big advocate for Greggs desserts, you know. I think they do a mean donut.
I'm sort of like the least fussy person in the world. I'm like,
right.
Whatever,
so like, if I gave you a chicken bake, a sausage, bean and cheese, maybe
I don't
a
like
steak.
cheese.
Oh, you don't like cheese?
No. I like it on a pizza, but not on anything else. I'm a bit weird like that. So if you give me pizza, I'll have cheese on it, but I won't have like a cheese butty or cheese toaster like that.
You wouldn't have a cheese toasty?
No.
Cheese toasters are great. I mean, I'd say cheese toasters are...
I feel like I really upset you.
I'm shocked.
I'll eat it on pizzas, but I think that's because you just do. But I don't like cheese on its own.
Interesting.
I'm not dead fussy with food, but I don't like cheese.
Fast. I don't like cold food. Like, that's my big sandwiches. I'm not asked about them. But if you gave me a toasty, I'm in there. As in, like, I can't not eat it. And melted cheese for me is just divine. Like, do you like mozzarella dippers from like Mackey's and stuff? And, and like halloumi.
I like most stuff, not cheese, but that's in a lot of stuff in it.
I mean, it's in practically everything nowadays. Interesting. I never thought. So you'd avoid the cheese. So you'd be like sausage roll, steak bake.
Yeah, I won't have it. Like, I love pies, but I won't have a cheese pie out like that. No.
Interesting. What's like say if someone was just getting into music, as in like someone from abroad, never listened to any UK music, what 5 songs are you giving them, or 3 songs?
Wow, that is on the spot. Can I say bands rather than...
Yeah, actually, that's a good idea, yes. Oh, so like 3 artists, or like as random as you can
These
make
are going to be,
like,
as in my favourite, or what like...
Just to introduce them to sort of like British music, or sort of like music that you think they need to be introduced
These are going to be so obvious, but the Beatles and Oasis are 2.
Yeah.
And then... I don't know, perhaps the Jam or the Arctic Monkeys.
Nice.
Yeah. Because that way then you've got
Jam
the
and the Arctic Monkeys are very different as well, which I quite like.
I think the Beatles just did everything. Without the Beatles, there'd be nothing. Oasis are very British, let's have it kind of thing. And then I think the Jam had the old punk aspect. The Jam were brilliant because they were very punky but told stories as well.
Yes.
And then the Arctic Monkeys is probably almost the new age, what the Arctic Monkeys, what the Jam did.
See, my controversial music opinion is I'm not a huge fan of Arctic Monkeys. Yeah. I like them. I think they were good, but I've never been like, wow.
See, so the Arctic Monkeys I like. I've always liked them, went to see them and all that.
Yeah.
But there's a band, one of my favourite bands ever, and anyone who follows me on socials know this, Little Man Tate. Are you familiar with them?
And yes, so obviously I've seen it.
Little Man Tate, to me, are the Beatles and Oasis. That's how important they are. Mm-hmm. And Little Man Tate came along at the same time as the Arctic Monkeys. Nice. And there were a period in the early 2000s where Sheffield had this amazing music scene. They had the Arctic Monkeys, Little Man Tate, Milburn, Reverend the Makers, and everyone got overlooked because of the Arctic Monkeys. Mm-hmm. In a bit, Wigan's over the last few years has been the same way. So many amazing bands in Wigan, but the Lathams have sort of
overtook it.
Yeah. But yeah, so Little Man, it was always Little Man Tate for me, and I always get asked like what my favourite thing is, and I don't like the word favourite because I think anything you do in music, you're just lucky to be able to do it.
Yes.
But one of the highlights for me has been I'm friends with Little Man Tate. When they got back together, I did the 2 comeback gigs in Sheffield for them. I did some of the tour with them last year, and Little Man Tate for me are the Sheffield band.
Nice.
And anyone who's not heard Little Man Tate, listen to them.
You need to get into it.
They did 2 albums back in the day, and then they've just released the first album in 16 years, which is just as good. Isn't disappointing. But yeah, so when it comes to Sheffield bands, love Arctic Monkeys, but Little Man Tate
are the one for you.
I always thought that when I was at school growing up, like Oasis came out, I think a lot of the, being from Heywood and Greater Manchester, North Manchester, the reason why every lad loved Oasis was because they were the first band of our generation that looked like us, sounded like us, walked like us.
Yes, definitely.
And they meant something. They wore the hearts on the sleeves. And I think in the 2000s, Little Man Tate became that band for me at that age in my 20s or whatever.
You relate to what you know, don't you?
Yeah, and I don't necessarily...
At the moment, there's a band that, like, at the moment, the K's for me are my
brilliant.
favourite band.
What a band.
Because when I see the behind the scenes stories and behind the scenes sort of, that's me.
I've worked with the K's a lot, and they're great lads. Last time I seen them was at Shine On Festival in Minehead last year. And they're a brilliant band. The K's deserve the world.
Oh, they're the next arena band for me.
They've got to be.
I saw them do Manchester Academy without an album.
Yeah.
Who does Academy 1 without an album?
Yeah, they're brilliant. But like I say, there's so many bands like that at the moment. But it's good.
Spectacular. Mate, thank you very much for coming down. Where can we find you on socials?
It's dead easy, really. At Dave Sweetmore on pretty much Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook. Yeah, just at Dave Sweetmore.
On the works, perfect. It'll all be up on the screen there. If you are listening for the first time on YouTube, please do subscribe to the channel. I'm pushing on 500 and nearly getting there, so please do support.
And can I just say, keep up the good work, what you're doing, because
thank you very much.
Doing for new music and that is amazing, and there should be more of it, so honestly.
Mate, thank you very much, really appreciate it. If you are listening on Spotify as well, please do give us a 5-star review. It really does help push the podcast out to more people. Dave, thank you again, mate.
Thank you, mate. Thanks for having me.